Welcome to Artflakes on CBA TV. This is Mutiola. This time around, we have thoroughly explored East Africa. We last time also explored the South Africa. And one time, I think we explored the Francophone part of West Africa. This is going to be the first time we're going to the Anglophone part of West Africa. Where? That's the only country you can think of, the giant of Africa, not only giant of East Africa, Nigeria, and the giant of even Nigeria itself, that is not northern part of Nigeria. Which aspect, which northern part are we talking about? When we get to the other side of the studio, you'll get to understand what I'm talking about. See you there. Welcome back. As I've told you earlier, we'll be dealing with the other part of the world that we fail to touch fully, particularly the key part of that world, that is West Africa, and that's specifically Nigeria. Now, not even Nigeria alone, we're dealing with the northern part of Nigeria. Why is this special to us? By the time we get deeply into the content of this show today, you'll get to understand why we start with the northern parts. Some people will say, but when you talk about the literary world is filled with the southern part of that country. I think you are making a mistake. By the time we get to the content, you will understand what Yerima asked for us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. As we've said earlier, we're looking at the term ATTAHIRU. ATTAHIRU is not an English word. So most of the text that we've reviewed on this show, they are more of English related words. We've never, for once, maybe have something related to something of such, unless I forgot this. So what could have led to this word ATTAHIRU? Why Ahmed Yeriama decided to have that such as a title?
ATTAHIRU is a sultan of the Sokoto Caliphate. And if you are familiar with the West African history very well, you know the important role that the Uthman and Fodio jihad played in West Africa. It was a jihad that not only occupied Nigeria, spread towards Cameroon and even Niger and Chad. So, and there, he was a powerful figure in the 18th century. So, and with that, his reign continued onto his sons and relatives that came to rule the northern part of Nigeria today, as we know it today, but it was beyond that then. And ATTAHIRU was one of the prominent ruler of that period, because although his reign was just for 6 months, but the impact he made in history is quite unforgettable. And now coming to look at it, why is ATTAHIRU very important in northern history? It's because, you see, at that early period, it was at a time whereby the reign of Madame Fodio lineage had gotten to almost a century. It has reached 100 years, and ATTAHIRU ascended the throne at that important point in history. And there's a prophecy that the reign of Madame Fodio's lineage will wither out once it gets to 100 years. So it was more like ATTAHIRU was coming at the time that fate had decreed that things were going to become destabilized. And the prophecy happens to appear as if it's true, because it was at that time that Lord Lugard, the first Governor General, European Governor General of Nigeria, was running around trying to amass land for the British government. So, and then he desperately needed to have the northern part of Nigeria under his control before the French could get it. You know, the French took over Niger and Chad, but he did not allow them to penetrate to the north. He desperately needed to take over those places before the French could get there. So he wanted to force the ruler of that period, that was ATTAHIRU, to become a subject under the British Queen. And this was not just an ordinary kingdom. For you to be the ruler of the Sokoto Caliphate, it means that you are the Sarikin, that's the leader of all Muslims within that kingdom. And Sarikin Muslimi, and even above the other small kings, even down to the Amir of Kano. So you can see the power that this man wields within that vast empire. But the colonial period, thoughtlessly, came and they wanted to penetrate, and at the end of the day, they end up disheveling the whole system. Yeah, because the empire now is not as it was. Yeah. It was something that spread to Niger and Chad, and those places now are cut out of. They are not even part of Nigeria today. Yeah. So you can see that we are living within colonial boundaries rather than the old boundaries that existed. And even if you look at this society, for instance, you know what I think it's Audal or Audal Kingdom. It was something that spread down to Ethiopia, but look at it today. So the colonialists came and they put a knife to the way it was and partition everything, the scramble and partitioning for Africa. So, and we know in history, we have been told that if we talk about the prominent rulers that fought against colonial intrusion, we mentioned King Jaja of Okpobo, we mentioned Nana of Ishekiri. Then we also talk about Ashanti Hene of Ghana and Oba Ovuramen of Benin. So these are the ones that we mentioned. Because the idea most people believe is the northern oligarchy believe that if the West, the colonialist comes in, they would have it will cement the power of the Fulani oligarchy. So the Fulani elites allowed. Basically submitted themselves to the rule of colonialism, and the belief is that yes, and that is why the system of indirect rule propagated by Lord Lugard worked very well in the northern area. But this is not so, because what we are made to believe, it appears that Ahmed Yeriama is trying to tell us that yes, there were uprisings here and there, and even I think there was one, even Seprene Quincy wrote about the Kano uprising, which was also somehow related with colonialism. So you have this Ahmed Yerima's work, and here he mentions the impact of ATTAHIRU.
Very good. This is the area where I want us to, the exact place I want you to talk about. Okay. You see, you've been mentioning what happened in the northern part, how that has got relations with the colonialism, particularly in Nigeria or the West African part of this continent. You now mentioned the writer. It was very important where we understand who this writer is before we go deeply into his work. Right. Who is Ahmed Yerima?
You see, Ahmed Yerima is a playwright. He was once the manager of the National Theatre in Nigeria, and he has written several plays. And I think also now he's a professor now. And he teaches I think theatre arts or thereabout. He's a dean of humanities in Redeemers University in Nigeria. And he studied in Lagos and also in the UK. And one peculiar thing about him is that, or let's say that the best of his plays are usually woven from historical materials. So, and such you have the trials of Oba Ovuramen, you have Amir Boni the Great, and now today we are talking about ATTAHIRU. And he was born in 1957, I think. He's still very much alive. Yeah. And he's very much famous with the younger crop of readers and literary writers amongst them. So, and at the one, I think in 2006, he won the Anna Prize for Literature. That's 2006, yeah. So he's a very prominent playwright amongst Nigerian writer. But
so he's historical
playwright. Historical playwright. The material for his plays are usually taken from history. And the peculiar thing about this play, or the special thing about this play, is that it spotlights the aspect of history that has been downplayed for a long. We do believe that yes, the northern part submitted to colonialism. It came and they felt, okay, let us cement our powers with the colonial system. If they are for us, then nobody can be against us. Then before then, they had this issue. The houses and the Fulani were not. There was a bit of clash. But because the colonial system came, and the belief is that it empowered them to continue ruling, and that is what is obtainable to date. But in actuality, there was a certain level of resistance. It wasn't just a thing of you come and you say you want to take over and I submit to you foolishly like that.
But perhaps maybe that's why the system of ruling was not the same. If you consider the history of the colonialism, particularly in Nigeria, the indirect rule system was implemented, and it was implemented smoothly because of the operational system of the rulership system of the North. It was effective, right, in the North.
Yeah, it was effective
because a centralized system of government that they use. They believe more in their Sudan, in their Emirate system. But on the other side, it's not like that, you know, because even the king will have to consult the chief.
It was a democratic society. The Southerners, when you talk about like the Yorubas, for instance, they had a democratic system. You know, when you talk about the Alaafin of Oyo, you will have the Yomesis, the chiefs who he must consult. So, and the king doesn't have the overall role in the Yoruba system. You know, the chiefs also have a great role to play as well as the king. So you have the Basharon, you have the and all of this come together to decide to make a decisive decision on anything they decide to do. And if you go to the east, they had this system of government that was based on age groups. The eastern part, the southeastern, the eastern part. So you have the Igbos there, and you know, even there's a proverb in Igbo language that if you want to become a king, then you have to go around and pay the debt of everybody, because even if you are able to pay the debt of everybody, then if you succeed to become a king, you are a king without money, so you become your powers are greatly lessened. So that they believe in the age group system. But this, in the northern part, it was a bit different. There was a leader. It was a religious society that it was based on religion, and the leader was much respected. And you know, that was one of the reasons why ATTAHIRU fought against the intrusion of the colonialists, because you know, this is a Muslim society, and it was to put it in the right way, it is patrilineal, or it is a patriarchal society that was based on male dominance. Now you want to colonize me, you want to rule me, and you want to subject me under a female sovereign. You know, to them it was unhearable, and they could not just envisage that kind of this thing. But you see, when powers confront powers, you know, one must bend for the other, bow for the other one. And ATTAHIRU soldiers were fighting with mere bows and arrows and sword and knives, while the colonialists came with weapons, guns, and you know, heavy artillery. And the war was not balanced on both sides. So at the end of the day, ATTAHIRU was killed at the battlefield.
Let's go into the synopsis or the plot development of this wonderful creative write-up. What happened in this ATTAHIRU?
ATTAHIRU Muhammad was appointed the Sultan, was made the Sultan, and when he was made the Sultan, after the demise of the old Sultan, it was at that time there was a prophecy that, and you know, he's from the Madanfodio lineage. So it was a prophecy that when Madanfodio lineage arrives 100 years, the power will begin to dissipate or wither away. Or that the empire will cease to be. That was the prophecy. So ATTAHIRU knew of this prophecy, and he was afraid of it coming to pass in his time. But then it was at this same time that the white man, the Lord Lugard, was moving around trying to amass land for the British government.
For the Lord at home.
Yeah, for the Lord at home. And you know, while he was busy doing this, he wanted the north for himself. But the Muslim society, led by Muhammad ATTAHIRU, Sultan Muhammad ATTAHIRU the first, would not tolerate such. They would not brook such engagement where there would be, because this was the leader of all Muslims in that area. It was a powerful kingdom that had other powerful kingdoms underneath it. Look, you talk about, even for instance, the Kano kingdom. You know, it was all, they were all under this, and now you want to subject such a paramount ruler underneath a Western ruler who is even a female sovereign, a queen. So now ATTAHIRU did not want to see that, because it will appear a shame if it happens in its time that the kingdom that was so strong became just a puppet
Submissive
to a female sovereign somewhere.
Queendom.
Yeah,
We'll refer to that one as queendom.
so he rejected that and said no way that he wouldn't be a part of it, and they wanted to have that him accept the listen by all means. So in the process, the war was declared. You know, the confrontation was bound to happen because both sides do not see eye to eye. And when the war happened, the British brought their troops in, and his own men were loyal to him because they saw the war as a holy war. They saw it as a jihad. That this was the war between the faithfuls and the infidels. So they saw that the intrusion of the Western world was like trying to conquer the Muslim world. So his followers were so faithful to him, and they decided that yes, we are going to fight this war. And it was perhaps the most important decision he would ever take within the 6 years. It was such a short period. He had not even found time to relax enough to enjoy his time as king, and he decided to go to war with the colonialists. But at the end of the day, you know, the force he was going with was not as strong as the colonial force, and you know, the withered his power, and he was killed. So after he was killed, his brother managed to take over the throne, and his brother signed a pact with the colonialists.
Before you tell us that, because there's something we want to discuss about that. Okay. Let's go for a break. When we come back, we'll discuss about this. All right. See you then.
Welcome to QETC Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
I am Ahmed Mohammed Ahmed. I am a student of Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
Qalam Educational and Technical Center is a place that you can improve your English language.
I came with zero English. Now I'm better.
Come to Qalam Educational and Technical Center. This will help you to improve your English, your listening, your speaking, your writing and reading.
If you want to speak confidently without fearing, come and join Qalam and learn how to speak in front of thousands people without fear.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking about how Muhammadu ATTAHIRU the first in the sense that before his time there was nothing like ATTAHIRU in the rulership of the northern part of Nigeria. He came as the first one after natural disappearance of the old Sultan. Sultan is just like Sultan is a common name for the head of the head. When you talk about the emirs, they are under Sultan. Then you have different sub-leaders within the same different units. Just every society has something of this nature. But in Nigeria, particularly in the northern part, Sultan is in charge of all other kingdoms within the demography of the north. What did Ahmed Yeriama say about this in his ATTAHIRU? We're going to the other side. I remember we were talking about the pact. What was this all about? Who took over? Who is that brother that Abubakar is talking about? Let's go into this in detail. You've just discussed about this war and how it ended, perhaps because of primitiveness of the tools used by Muhammadu ATTAHIRU's troop, lack of experience when it comes to war. So that could have led to his failure. Even though they fought, they also killed, but unfortunately they were defeated. What happened after?
Yeah, you know, I think I think it was Claude McKay, the American poet, who wrote a poem, and I think If We Must Die. I think it was If We Must Die, and he said in that poem that even if we must die, let us die honorably, so that those that come to kill us would respect us for the way we have chosen to die, not to die like cowards or hogs, like pigs. Yeah, so, and I think that is where the tragedy of, that is the angle that I would want to see the tragedy of ATTAHIRU Jega. I wouldn't want to say he was a coward or that he failed. In the actuality, what I look at or what I consider is the fact that he had his own belief, and he was a man who refused to concur to the imperialist or the colonial intrusion that was about to happen. He vowed that it would not be in his own time that the caliphate will go under, will be subjected, a powerful caliphate, one of the most powerful, to a kingdom. And you know, he fought for, he stood by his right and believed in it, and he was not the kind of leader that would hide behind the war and ask people to go fight on his behalf. He was at the forefront at the battle with them, and he fought and died on the battlefield. So when you see a man who has that much conviction or that strong belief in himself, you are constrained to honor him even in death. And that is the honor that ATTAHIRU Muhammad deserves today. You know, even when we talk about history, no matter how it goes, history would never forget about the role played by people like King Jaja Fukubu. Despite the fact that, yes, he was incarcerated, and it was unfortunate that it was at the time he was released and he was coming home, he died. We had now Ichekiri, who was moved away like that. We had Ashantehene of the Gold Coast. You know, these people who looked at the colonial master in the face and told him that we don't need you here, and you can't do anything about it. And they stood by their words, they fought to their people, and even if they were defeated, right, the fact that they decide to look at a stronger power and say, yes, I'm going to stand with my people despite whatever you bring here, and fight for them. That is what we respect in history, that at least it was not just a story of somebody coming and taking over like that, and it's an easy way. There were pockets of resistance here and there, even though they were not strong enough. They could not overpower the cannons and the ammunition brought by the British troops. But still.
So let's look at the park. What happened after his departure?
Yeah, his brother took over, just like what happened with. I think that was Shaka the Zoo of the Zulu Kingdom. So I think there was the Boer War where the Zulu people fought against the colonialists, or the those that were encroaching into their territory, the white masters, and they won that war then. But you know, they keep pressing until they were able to get gain entrance. So that was what happened at the end of the day, and that's the sad story. You know, they will look for somebody amongst the white people who are very clever, the European. They will look for somebody amongst the family that is a bit acceptable. It happened, submissive to them, and sign the agreement with him. It happened with I think with the Kosoko in Lagos then. And also, Kosoko, of the royal family of Kosoko, then it happened. Then also, the same happened with Boorama in Bini. It was someone else was put there who betrayed him. Then also with Jaja Fukubu, like that, they will look for someone that they can easily take your place and who is accepted by the people. And that was what happened. They used a younger brother of him to replace him, and who signed the pact. And even the same is perhaps applicable with the army of Boni, who out of frustration or out of anger rather, he committed suicide, and they had to look for the next person to ascend the throne, which is still a problem in the confluence area of Kogi State today, the Kogi State. So you have the family that it was supposed to go to. The whites said that they want someone who is educated, so they had to boycott that family and give it to the next family. And that is still a problem in the royal system today, because that family now they felt in the last time when the last king died, they felt they were supposed to become the king, and no, they said no, we've passed you already, it has to go to someone else. So the colonialists are only looking for those that they feel can dance to their tune, those they feel can be their puppets, and they found his brother a willing tool, and he ascended the throne then.
So he signed the pact,
and
allowed them to penetrate.
Yes,
and that was the genesis of the control of the north by the colonial masters.
That is it.
And but I'm looking at one thing here. If you look at this thing that happened, you'll find out that the same thing is happening up to this moment in another pattern, from another perspective.
You mean what?
You cannot be a president of any African nation. This is just a very simple fact, without dancing to the tune of one of the powers in the United Nations. You know, so those who fail to dance to their tune were eliminated. You know, particularly during the time when military were in charge of governors in Africa. Almost all of them were eliminated from one place to another. They used their own people to eliminate them anyway. They just train them, find a way of penetrating to them. And it's still the same thing that is happening.
The same style.
It means that Africa has not learned any lesson from the past.
Yeah, we have a lot. We have a lot to learn. And that is why we are here talking about this today, because there is a lot for us to review, for us to learn from the past. It's not just about the play itself. Ahmed Yeriama has opened an important chapter in history that we need to reflect upon and see, we need to ponder and see what are the solutions to our modern problem. But the people don't, do I say they don't read, or they don't remember history, or people are too quick to forget about history. So we play the same thing over and over again. You know, the intrusion into the society. If you talk about even Afonja, perhaps, even though it wasn't colonial, was a symbolic, is a symbolic representation of what we are talking about today, the story of Afonja in Ilorin. So you have these kind of things, but people easily forget about the past, and they want to look at what gains are there in the future without thinking of what repercussions it will come with.
So does that mean that ATTAHIRU is telling us that if you try to fight the power beyond, you'll be eliminated? You have to dance to that tune. Is that what he's saying?
No. I think
the death of Muhammadu ATTAHIRU and the coming of his brother to take over is a way of telling us that there are things that are unachievable. You just have to allow things to go the way it is.
No.
So what message is it trying to convey?
It's not so really. It's not so really. But you see, what I see there is like if you look at the Things Fall Apart, for instance, Achebe's Magnus Opus. If you consider Things Fall Apart, you see that at the end, Okonkwo, the tragic hero, dies or commits suicide. And when that happens, it was not an endorsement of the colonial system. It was just to show you that this is the extent that the colonialists have been able to penetrate us. You know, like Obiorika, I think, and that's Achebe's Okonkwo's friend said. He said a white man has put a knife on the rope that binds us together, and now things have fallen apart. So the same thing is perhaps what ATTAHIRU Jega is demonstrating to us. The fact that ATTAHIRU dies in that play is not an endorsement to the colonial system. It is to tell you that, yes, our ancestors fought. They are not cowards. They did not just submit to oppression. They fought and they did not win, but yes, they did something at least. So it's a record in history, because tomorrow our own younger generation will ask us, what did we do when this was happening? Who are those that stood up on our behalf and say, yes, this thing has to change? Today there's a woman who worked for the UN, or is it AU, who is campaigning seriously about the issue of France getting allowance.
She was. That's what you see. Exactly, no, this is what I'm telling you.
She was fired, but
she was fired.
She did something.
By who? Who fired him?
No, she stood for the truth.
Who fired him?
The same Africans who employed her. I understand what you are saying.
Because they were puppets to those people.
I understand what you are saying.
If they fail to fire, because that's instruction given to them. If they fail to fire, what will happen? They will have the problem, and they didn't want to face problem with those people. Just a call eliminated that lady from the.
At the end of the day,
who talks
we are
about?
now. At the end of the day, we are not aware that this is going on, right? And once there's awareness,
so what have we done?
Something is going to be done definitely. It's not going to continue like that.
They have the control of the media. This is one thing. You have not got this very well. They have a way of silencing anything. They have a way of making you to just fade away through the media. They will just forget you through it.
You remind me of Garowe's poem. I think the horn of the kudu, where somebody tried to bury the truth and it grows. That's the way truth is. No matter the amount of years.
But it will take years to get it.
But something is being done at the moment.
Centuries upon century will face the same problem forever.
No, it's not going to be forever. That is what you have to. Even
the time,
I think it
was very hot that time. We could see it every day.
It was
people
Bob Marley.
were showing the videos. They even made this change.org campaigning for her to be restated. Nothing happened. And after that, they're no human being. We forget easily. What happened? We just realized that we couldn't say. We no longer have our lectures being shown as it used to be before.
No, but she has created a movement. She has created an awakening, and people are responding. You may not be seeing the physical result now, but I believe that something is working. Something is in the pipeline. So you don't just conclude that nothing is happening at the moment.
We have had thousands of people that are still facing the same issue up to today.
Yeah, it will continue, right? You may continue to be perpetrated a lie for years, but one day the truth will hold you to ransom.
Maybe after 200 years, when those people who saw it live are no longer alive.
It is left. The onus is left. The onus is left with yourself and myself and people like us today. Because tomorrow we ask us, what have we done? Right? By mentioning it here today, we have brought the issue to light again. So we are playing our own role, even though not as active as others are playing it. Not everyone becomes a soldier and holds a gun to battle to fight for the country. But by mere words of mouth, you can also participate. We have said it here today. We brought it to the fore, and we've mentioned it. It's a way of also regenerating or bringing renewal to the issue at hand. So we are doing our own part, and others too should be encouraged to do the same thing. But when we say that there is no hope, then it will not change. Things have not always been like this. And I believe that definitely a change is bound to come someday. It may not be now, but I think it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said that we will not remember the abuse of our enemies, but it is the silence of our friends that we would remember the most. So the worst we can do is to keep quiet. By raising awareness, by talking about it, then it means that there's a problem that needs to be solved. And we will keep talking about it. We won't let the issue die. We've mentioned it today here. Another time again, other people are expected to do the same thing. Or we will still come here and mention it again until something is done. Even if not in our lifetime, but at least something is said. So that when tomorrow asks us, what role did you play? We will be able to answer and say, this is what we have been able to do to that effect.
So does that mean that this will not continue like this?
No, it won't continue like that.
Because it started long before even colonialism.
It started.
They continue from there. So we can see Ahmed ATTAHIRU as the first nationalist, Nigerian nationalist. Not those people that came after.
Look at what
those we refer to as nationalists in the written paper.
Yeah.
The ATTAHIRU was not mentioned.
No.
They started with those who just went to the conference, those who were trained by them. The dogs eating dogs, because that's what I call them. Because as soon as they got the power, they got drunk and they used that to oppress their own people. They caused division a lot. So before they left, they strategized properly. They put their puppet there, just like the brother of Ahmed ATTAHIRU. And those are the ones that are dancing to the tune up to today. The day you say no to them, that is the day you start having one issue or the other. And they have a lot of tools that they use. Apart from this aid given to you, they have the control. And the power of the media. They have the power beyond the power. They have the veto.
I believe things can change.
Only one of them can say no to something. Look at oppression happening in the Middle East. Very obvious oppression. But only one country will just say no, and nothing will happen. Even if all of them, if the entire world say this is not good, once one country that is part of those the Security Council, and once they say no, we are not in line with this, because of that one country, the rest of the countries in the world will have to suffer for it. So they kept looking.
We understand that there is
and when little thing happened to those places where they want to really deal with, they bombard it with everything. They even pay heavily, use NGO or whatever to suppress the people.
I would not.
Whether through health, this you so-called Ebola, or you think is a natural disease. Ebola is not a natural disease. It's a synthetic one, it's man-made. The same thing like HIV/AIDS.
Yeah, I would not.
So there are ways they use to suppress you.
I would not
unless
argue.
you advance yourself. This is why I feel very sad sometimes when I see that our education is watered down. We don't focus on what will change us. We focus on the paper more than what is here. And that is our problem. They give us a curriculum and we just take it like that. Anyway, round it up, let's see what you have to say generally about this ATTAHIRU, Ahmed Yerima's ATTAHIRU.
You've said a lot in that aspect, but I still do believe that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Because you see, if for instance, if we can't mention any other African country, we can say that something is going on in Rwanda today. And Rwanda has been the beacon.
They still use media to call him a dictator.
Yeah, I know.
They use people to bastardize him. And they even, gullible-minded Africans are now
writing against him. I understand that. I see that. But still, I think the man is still alive today. And he's doing the best he can for his country, and we are seeing the giant strides that he has been able to he has made in that country. And if not for anything, we should have a bit of pride in him. And I believe that definitely other African countries would follow suit in time.
All right, we appreciate ATTAHIRU Ahmed Yerima for exposing us to things that we're unable to know, because with the world we wouldn't have known that the first nationalist in Nigeria specifically was Muhammadu ATTAHIRU the first. Anyone that comes after is just following this same man. We believe that with history we can revive or we can recover what we had lost in the past. So this creative work is not only for us to just enjoy ourselves. We get to learn beyond what is in the text itself. Thank you for viewing. Next time, we'll be going beyond this. Where we are going, I don't know. Then until we get there, see you.